like to introduce Daniel Grech. Daniel has worked in the traineeship and apprenticeship sphere since 2004. He specialises in ensuring students are aware there are many ways to get a post-secondary destination. Daniel provides information on career options, workplace expectations, making the most of your education, and general career assistance. Daniel is from MAS Experience. MAS Experience are a member of the Australian Apprenticeship Support Network. Daniel, over to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Tom. Nice intro there. That was very well written. You've done that before. Very nice to be with you guys this morning. The purpose of today is to introduce apprenticeships and traineeships, and hopefully dispel some myths and some rumours that you might have heard. Tell you some of the requirements, open up your minds to some industries, and then tell you how you should be taking steps in order to become ready. One of the big things is that it is a combination of work and of study, and so there's the result. You need to be balancing out both, and we'll just talk about that as we go along. So very quickly, before we start, one thing I will do is the aim of the presentation is to get you thinking. I don't like to do the whole sales pitch. So if you're here today and you're thinking, oh, he's going to sell me an apprenticeship, that's not what it will be. My job isn't to be a salesperson and get people in. It's to make sure the people who decide to go in actually know what they're going into so that the completion rate actually stays high. If you need anything explained, normally would say just put your hand up, but maybe you can chuck it in the chat room. If there's any questions at all, I think that's a really good thing to do. Chuck it in the chat room, and we'll definitely spend some time on Q&A at the end. In fact, last time we did the presentation, the Q&A was fantastic. It was really encouraging to see some of the questions you had. And then lastly, I will be using the term Australian apprenticeships. When we talk about Australian apprenticeships, that's the government's term for the overall umbrella that is apprenticeships and traineeships. So if you're here for a traineeship because you want to do things like hospitality or childcare, aged care, whatever be the case, just rest assured that we are talking about both when we're talking about them today. So let's get stuck into it. What are apprenticeships? An Australian apprenticeship is when you combine both work and study to gain the national qualification. So I say this all the time. If you were wanting to work and never step foot in any form of study ever again, maybe don't do an apprenticeship. If you want to study and you're not ready for work just yet, then don't worry about an apprenticeship. It is a combination of both. It is a different combination. So it's not study as you know it. It's not essays and necessarily long days in classrooms. It's hands-on, but you still do have to do the study. You have to prove you're competent both on paper and with your hands. And so that's what the whole purpose of the study is. And obviously there's the work component. Now, a typical apprenticeship is about an 80-20 split. So 80% work, 20% study. So 4 days of work, 1 day of study, but there is both components. So please be aware of that. When you're doing your thinking and decision making. There is a requirement to have an employer in order to be an apprentice. So you can't just rock up to TAFE and say, oh, I want to be an apprentice. You will need an employer in order to become an apprentice. And then lastly, an Australian apprenticeship typically takes between 1 to 4 years. So what we talk about there is the 1 to 2 years is usually your traineeships, hospitality, business, retail, warehousing, logistics, etc. 3 to 4 years for your traditional trades. Now, I write typically. I want to highlight the word typically. I believe you can draw. I'll go back very quickly. I won't draw that today, but when I say, there it is, why not draw? Let's see if we can do that. Typically, I've never done that in my presentations before. And the reason why I say typically is because if you get lazy, if you decide, I'm not going to rock up to TAFE. If you start becoming a bludger at the work site, then you will become a 3rd, 4th, 5th year apprentice. So it's very important that you understand that if you've got to balance out both in order to get to that finish line. Especially if you want to do plumbing and electrical, we see a lot of people who become turning a 3-year apprenticeship into 4 years, a 4-year apprenticeship into 5 years. especially in plumbing and electrical. Trust me, in electrical in particular, there is a lot of fifth-year apprentices. I want you to make sure that you combine the responsibilities of both in order to get to that finish line. Some reasons why I think an apprenticeship or traineeship might be wise for you. Now I've got to get rid of that scribble that I did. Hold on, there we go. Got rid of it. There we go. Back to the mouse. Very quickly, why do I think an apprenticeship or traineeship might be a smart option? Firstly, it's a hands-on pathway. So if you're looking at me thinking, I'm here because I just want to work, just know that even the study component in it is really, really hands-on. So it's a hands-on way of getting a qualification. You can see automatically just from those little 6 pictures that move to the left-hand side, they're all hands-on. They're all apprenticeships, right? That's one of the options, one of the beauties of being an apprentice. It is your hands doing the talking rather than just the theory. Secondly, the qualification is nationally recognised. What I mean by that is if you gain it in Melbourne and then, I don't know, fall in love, decide you want to see change, want to move over to the other side of Australia just to experience a new life, then your qualification moves with you. So apprenticeships and traineeships are federal programs, federally governed, federally written, and as a result of that, you can use those qualifications nationally. And some of them in Australia are actually also recognised overseas. But let's just stick with they're recognised in Australia for now. You get paid whilst you learn. So there's 2 components to work while you learn. Let's go with the learning in a classroom. You get paid for that study day. So just for an example, if you choose the most popular apprenticeship, which last year happened to be electrical, if you choose that, you're typically in a classroom for 4 days, on a work site for 4 days a week, and 1 day a week you'll be in a classroom at TAFE. Those 5 days combined are paid for. So you do get paid for your day at TAFE, and that's why there's a requirement to still be on time, to still work hard. Some TAFE teachers might say, oh, today we're only here for 1 hour. The expectation is you call your boss since you're getting paid and you go back and maybe work on the job site. You don't just, oh, sweet, I'll have a bludge day now. The boss doesn't know I've got a day off because you're getting paid, okay? That's the responsibility of being an adult, and welcome to that. The other component I talk about when you're getting paid to learn is on the job, you're learning. So if you're, decide to do, hairdressing, day one, you're not going to just rock up and be expected to know absolutely everything. So if that be the case, you're getting paid to technically learn, to make mistakes. I always like to use my favorite example of when I had an apprentice who dropped a sheet of glass that would have cost the business about $1,000. It's probably about 4 or 5, but once installed, cleaned and all that, the employer would have got about $1,000 for that. That smashes. The employer doesn't say, well, I'm taking $1,000 out of your wages to the apprentice. The apprentice still gets paid for that week. Why? Because there's an expectation that that's part of the learning process, that mistakes will happen. So you will get paid to learn. And then overall, over that 4 years, it's expected that you'll clear about you'll have about $120,000 to $130,000 worth of wages, not including penalty rates and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of you would have heard the wages are low. I want you to compare apples and apples, not apples and oranges. And we will talk about this a little bit further down in the slide show just a little bit later. The next dot point is that there is 500 qualifications that can be done as an apprenticeship and traineeship. I think the total is 509 in Victoria. So again, if you're just thinking plumbing, electrical, carpentry, please open up your mind to the possibilities, and we'll do a little slide representation of that later on. And then lastly, with an apprenticeship or traineeship, whatever you choose to do with it is completely up to you. So once you're fully qualified, the possibilities are endless. And what we mean by that is if you want to start your own business, it starts with completing your apprenticeship and traineeship. If you would like to go off and be a foreman, site supervisor, OH&S worker, then first get your qualification, then you can go off and do that. If you want to work for someone for the rest of your life, I have no interest in being a boss, I just want to be an employee, you can. The reality is once you're qualified, you can do what you want with that qualification. I think that's really, really important because a lot of people at the moment think, nah, I'm not being a business owner. That's too much responsibility. But that passion starts to ignite as you become older and more experienced. The next one there we got is, like all things, there are some false impressions. So let's go through some myths. We've heard the old go grab me the left-handed paintbrush or the left-handed screwdriver, or the bullying that takes place. When I first started, I remember one of the first calls I received way back in 2004 was from an apprentice who was getting chased with a shovel. Okay. Now, a lot has changed since I've been in this industry. And one of the things is apprentices now are covered, just like any employee, under what's known as Brodie's Law. And if you haven't had a look at that, I encourage you to do that. And that's where employers can go to either to prison or be heavily fined if they turn a blind eye to bullying. So bullying is something that should be stamped out, and you do have a responsibility in that as young adults as well. What we mean by that is not only do you have the responsibility to not bully people, but you have the responsibility to speak up. Don't just sit there quietly. You have the same rights as any other employee. Next, just on that though, very, very quickly, there is a difference between bullying and workplace expectations. Last year, we had a session, I had a bit of a chuckle, where a young man put his hand up and said, my brother experienced bullying on a work site. And I said, what was he doing? His boss made him dig a hole and it was raining. And I said, what trade is he doing? And he said, plumbing. Guys, that's not bullying. That's workplace expectations, okay? If you don't want to dig a hole in the rain and you want to be a plumber, the two don't match, right? So please, there is a difference between being bullied and asking you to do your job. Remembering you are being paid, there is an expectation that you do your job. Gender needs to play a part in the roles I apply for. Absolute nonsense. If you want to be a male nurse, if you want to be a male childcare worker, go for it. You're the generation who has to clean that up. If you want to be a female building and construction worker, go for it. It's the time for you guys to break down the barriers that are out there and set the tone. You can, I don't know if you guys can see me in the background in the photo, or you can just see the slideshow, but if you can see me, you can see I got 2 kids. And I would hope that your generation will mean that that generation can do any job that they want, right? So if you've got a passion for something, go for it. Don't make excuses. Go out and achieve it. The next one is I'll need a second job because the wages are so low. I spoke about that before, in a sense that if you compare apples and oranges, then yeah, the wage will be low. So if you compare it to me, or you compare it to someone who's fully qualified, obviously we've been in the industry for ages. Of course, we're going to earn more than you. But if you compare it to people your age, the wage is quite decent, and it goes up every single year, and you're getting paid to learn. Set yourself up into the future, okay? And then when you're fully qualified, some of the trades are regarded as some of the highest paid jobs in Australia, right? I'm not going to go into that today because it's not all about money, but just know that trades are significantly going up in wages. They're well protected typically, and so you should take comfort in that. And also, as well as that, there is support from the government. So apprenticeships and traineeships both have support mechanisms in place for you to be able to achieve your goals. One of the other things that we often hear is, I'm after a job that works Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. There isn't many jobs that do that anymore. Last night I had a parent night, so I finished at 9. There is jobs where you'll need to be on site at 6 in the morning. There'll be jobs where you might have to come over on the weekend. If you want to be a hairdresser or a chef, then, think about when, you go to a restaurant or when you go for a haircut. There are times that are convenient for you, but maybe not for the employee. But if you're taking those careers, you're going to have to understand that that's the case. Childcare workers, for example, I'm able to drop my kids off from 6 in the morning and pick them up until 6:30, which means childcare workers need to work in those hours. So it's important for you to know that it's in order for you to gain opportunities and gain experience, it's important that you are open to working outside hours and putting that down on your resume. And then lastly, that I can trial for weeks and weeks or months. That's another myth, okay? You need to trial for no more than 2 weeks. After that, the decision needs to be made by the boss or by yourself. So if your boss says, no worries, come on board, we'll have a 3-week trial and then we'll take it from there. That's not on. Especially a lot of old-fashioned employers, they push for 3-month trials. That's not how it should be working. So you can see the fancy graphic there. They're all busted. They're all myths. Some of those work in your favour, like bullying and low wages. You know, the myth is busted. They are better for you. And some of them are probably worse off for you. Things like, yeah, you're going to have to work flexible hours. So I talked about before there being 509 opportunities, and they fall in a lot more industries, as you can see, than just building, construction and electrical. So just don't want to go on this one too much, but you can see things like IT and you can see manufacturing. When we think about manufacturing, everyone thinks, no, I'm not working with metal or whatever be the case. You know, yesterday I had a locksmith, for example. That's manufacturing. I've had a jewelry maker earlier on this month. That's manufacturing. So understanding what falls under each of these is very important. So we're going to look at a few in a little bit more detail. We'll look at firstly building and construction. You can see everyone always thinks plumbing, electrical and carpentry, but think of more than that. Painting, joinery, plastering, roof tiling, sign writing, bricklaying, glaziers, that's not even there, stonemason, refrigeration mechanic. Open up your mind to, I want to work in building construction, so I must have to be a carpenter. That's a load of nonsense. There is a lot more. Some of these are more accessible than others, but it's your job to do the research to know exactly what you want to go into. The next one is automotive, okay? Oh yeah, I want to be a mechanic. So what type of mechanic? All right, light vehicle, heavy vehicle. Do I want to be an auto elect, a panel beater or a spray painter? Do I want to work with bicycles? Do I want to work with boats? It's your job to find an industry and then break it down to what you would like to do in that industry in order for you to be the best candidate that's possible. Health and community. All right, so, you know, we've got any community-minded people in the room. You know, it's more than just childcare or aged care. You know, drug support workers, education aides, youth care workers. So again, opening your mind to that. And then lastly, when we talk about food or hospitality, it's not just chef. There's kitchen operations for someone who wants to level down. There's specializing areas such as Asian cookery, baking and patisserie. There's butchers. There's people who work in hospitality, which we know is one of the biggest, up until recently, the biggest employers of young people in particular. So just keep your mind open to there as well. How can we help as an organisation? We can sit with you one-on-one. From the last presentation we did, just in this week, to let Tom know, a couple of people have reached out just this week. Oh, Daniel, I heard in your presentation from back in, I think they said August. Was it that far back? Was it time already? I think. Yeah, it must. September, August. I can't remember. September. Yeah, one of them had the exact date and the time and everything. And we'll be having a one-on-one next Tuesday. And that's the plan, guys. If there's a seed that's been planted, now you reach out. Now you're the ones who, as young adults, take the next step to make a time to have a one-on-one chat to address your personal circumstance. Now, we're doing this in person. Normally, Tom will, you know, tell you that we pick your one-on-one situation. Say, all right, well, what do you want to do? And we address it. Now, that's not possible in 2020, doing things via WebEx and Zoom. But if you want that, pick up the phone, make a time, and we'll do that with you. We've got some special tools that we can use along the way to see how ready or find knowledge gaps. There's one we have, for example, if you say, Daniel, no, I definitely want to be an apprentice. We have a 12-question survey to make sure your knowledge is up to speed. Okay? Young men typically take it, and not one young man has ever got 100%. And that's fine. That's exactly what we want. Because if you're honest, there is always things you need to learn. Do you know you can have a mentor? Do you know what a trade support loan is? Do you know how much you can borrow from the government? Do you know what vet fee help is? Do you know the support mechanisms? A lot of people know about the job, but they don't know about the mechanics that work in the background. And that's our job as an apprenticeship centre, as was mentioned by Tom at the beginning, as Australian Apprenticeship Support Network. We support apprenticeships, not just the paperwork, not just helping you be job ready, but everything. We've got a team of youth workers. Why is that important? Because a lot of apprenticeships fall down due to drugs and alcohol, losing my license, falling out with my girlfriend or boyfriend. And as a result of that, you know, the personal stress causes me to lose my job. So we've put a team of youth workers to help you fight those personal challenges. We've got level 1 mentors. Level 1 mentors are things like who help with, Daniel, I'm not getting a pay slip. Or Daniel, I rock up every morning at 7. My boss makes me wait in the rain till 8 o'clock. right? But I don't know how to have that conversation. We can do those things for you. So we help all of that. And then probably the most nerdy, but most important thing is we help with the government sign up, the paperwork that's involved in apprenticeships. And why is that the most important? Because if you do want to be an apprentice or trainee and you find an employer, you must do the paperwork to make it official. Cash in hand, working occasionally, working casually is not an apprenticeship. An apprenticeship is a formal, structured, full-time, working to a long-term goal that's supported by the federal government. Okay, and it's as a result of that that the paperwork needs to be done. I'll give you an example across the road. The young man across the road decided he was given the opportunity to earn $450 a week as an apprentice or $900 a week, so exactly double as a labourer. Okay, he did the right thing. He asked for professional advice, and I said to him, yes, you will be earning $450 in the short term, but long term, you'll be well established that you can start a business like your brother, or you can earn $400 a day almost, guaranteed by doing the right steps whilst you're younger. Now, he didn't take my advice and he took the labouring position, right? And no doubt, he's got 2 cars, you know, he's obviously making good money. But we went into a lockdown, he was gone. He's dispensable because he's a casual, right? With an apprenticeship, you're formal. There needs to be formal channels for things to be broken. There is a probation period, which is 3 months. After that 3 months, there needs to be a formal process for you to be cancelled out of your apprenticeship or your traineeship. So it's really important that you're putting your future ahead of yourself at this particular stage, sucking it up in the short term so that long term you've got something set up for life, okay? Some other reasons why it's important to be signed up is without being signed up, you're not an apprentice. We just spoke about that. You cannot get enrolled with a TAFE without being signed up. So remembering, I said to you, in order to finish, you need to study and work. TAFE, work, TAFE, work. Okay? So if you don't get into TAFE or you don't get in there fast, you are risking your apprenticeship going longer because you haven't been signed off from your TAFE. The only way you can get in is for you to be registered with the government. Now, this is the most boring part of the presentation. I apologize, but it is also one of the most important parts in a sense of without that registration, you can't start your journey. If you're signed up, the time doesn't work towards your apprenticeship. Now, I had a really sad story. This is when I first started, nearly, sadly, 15 years ago, where a young lady was being hassled by her partner. She wanted to be a carpenter. She had managed to find a job. And so she wouldn't give me the details. And she said, I don't want to share my personal details. I'm going through a few personal things at the moment. I didn't know what to do. I was new to the job. So I called my employer and my employer said, Daniel, you know, my boss said, she said, there is no way we can twist her arm. And I'm like, okay, then. So we left and whatever be the case. Now that lady worked for 6 months with that employer. That employer then, unfortunately, lost their business. So this young lady went to enroll with another apprenticeship and she was now willing to give the details. But unfortunately, we weren't able to give her any of that 6 months credit that she had done because she'd never had got the first one registered, right? So it's the importance of being registered isn't just to get into TAFE. It isn't just to allow you to access some government funds. It's in order to start your clock, in order ticking towards the finish line. Because it's the black and white records, paper records, well, now they're electronic records, that allow you to say, I'm finished. And then there is some government assistance, things like you having access to a loan, you having access to financial support from the government, you getting half-price car rego. You know, if you want half-price car rego, go off and do an apprenticeship. Do the right paperwork. But it's not your boss's responsibility, it's yours. So make sure you're doing those things. Now, I'm happy now. I normally try and aim for that 20 to 25 minutes, which is roughly where we're at, talking about apprenticeships and apprenticeships only. So if there's any questions, we are going to do, we're going to change direction after this. So if there's any questions, pop them in the chat in regards to apprenticeships and traineeships. Feel free to do that as we go along. I want to change tack now to the fact that with an apprenticeship or traineeship being 80% work, I want to change tack towards how do I become job ready? Because young people who think they are job ready often aren't. Okay. And what I mean by that is that work is work, and it's very different to school. So we're going to talk about some of the realities of a workplace. First and foremost, your job is not your right. It is actually a privilege to have a job. And we've seen that more so in 2020 than ever before. I think they expect, and I'll get Tom to give me a nod, that unemployment is expected to be around 10% by the time the government handouts wrap up. And for youth, it's potentially 20%. So think about that for a sec. 1 in every 5 young person is expected to find it difficult to have a job. So when you land one, it's not your right to have it. I've got a job, it owes me. It's the other way around. What can I do to keep my boss happy so I am not going to lose this job? Because in a workplace, you are owed nothing, my friends. If you don't work, you're gone. Whether you're 15 or whether you're 55, whatever be the case, if you're not performing, then there'll be discipline to the point where you might lose your job. What you put in is what you get out. And that's an important one. If you want a promotion, put in. If you want a team leader position, put in. I'm not going to give you a promotion. And the best version of this is you see it at your own schools. Oh, I've been here 50 years. It's not fair. I've been here 50 years and they've never given me an opportunity. Maybe that person who's whinging needs to look at what they've actually done in that 50 years rather than, I shouldn't be owed this due to time. People who get opportunity don't get it just because of time. They get it because they've been the best workers. Trust me, there's always somebody watching. All right. And what we mean by that is, if you work hard, someone's acknowledging it. You spend some time doing overtime, somebody's acknowledging it. You're the first person to wrap up and leave, someone is watching. You leave with a task half complete, there is someone watching. So if you want to be the best version, make sure you're always, always, always doing that mentality that someone is watching me. And then lastly, unlike school, there are no excuses. Okay. If you've got a uniform at school, you might wear it 95% of the time properly. Or in work, that's 5% chance of you getting fired because it needs to be 100%. There is no excuse for being late. Remembering, if you do a job such as a carpenter, you might be working in Reservoir 1 week. The next week, you might be working in Airport West. And then the next week, you might be working in Geelong. 7 o'clock means 7 o'clock. It doesn't matter where you're working. Your boss will expect you there at 7. And I love to tell my favorite little cousin, I know you shouldn't have favorite family members, but my favorite cousin took a job. He lives in Mill Park. He took a job just up from Mill Park there. I've gone blank. Bundoora, a factory in Bundoora. And so he was happy. He was waking up 15 minutes before his shift, 5 minutes, slap some clothes on, drive down, have breakfast with the boys, and off he'd go. And he was loving life. Then his boss landed a contract in Geelong. And so the boss told him, if you want to remain working here, it now means 7 o'clock is in Geelong. So he'll be waking up at 5, grabbing breakfast on the 2-hour drive, and he'd be doing that. And that's the requirement of the job. He's now just sending a text because he's starting a business and he's asking for, have you guys got any good names for electrical companies? And so he should be really proud of those efforts, right? But he's been grinding it out now for 10 years, and that's what he's allowed himself to earn. So in order to do that, you need to start by controlling the things you can control, guys. Your resume. Your resume is a snapshot of you. You might be the greatest employee there is, but if your resume is rubbish, you're not going to get an interview. So with your resume, neat, tidy, no spelling mistakes, saved in a format I can open, simple, to the point. I don't want a 5-page resume. You guys are young. 1, maybe 2. I want you to highlight all your experiences, work experience, your part-time jobs at Macca's, Coles, Woolies, the greengrocer, whatever it is. Make sure you please put everything down. People often say to me, Daniel, why do I put my Woolies job? Like, what's that got to do with being an electrician? Well, at Woolies, you have a uniform, you need to be on time, you need to interact with customers. Same as any trade, same as any hairdressing apprenticeship, same as any cooking apprenticeship. They're always interacting, they're always working towards a common goal, they're always wearing a uniform. I want you to start working on these things. If you are year 12, I hope you've perfected them. If you're year 10 or 11 listening to this, then I want you to work on your email etiquette with your teachers, because soon the email etiquette you use with employers is what you'll be judged on. So what I mean by that is, do you answer your emails in full sentences or do you write, okay? Do you have an email address that is professional, or is it iBurnout69, right? Because these things paint a picture for me. If I send you an email today is already gone blank, Wednesday, you don't wait until the long weekend to do it. You respond straight away. My favorite story from last year, the whole favorite story from last year, which is sad, but it's a great story, is a young man who missed the job with Hawthorn Football Club because they wanted a response in 72 hours and he waited a week. Now that's just not on, guys. If you're keen, if you are wanting to show me you're the best person, you write a full email as soon as possible within 24 hours with no spelling mistakes. That shows me you're interested, all right? And you need to be doing that. With phone and voicemail, I ring up young people all the time and their voicemail doesn't match them. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I had a young student from Marsland College who we were supposed to set up a Zoom. So we set up the Zoom and we couldn't get the audio working. Now I see him, young, strong looking male. So I said in the chat, I actually wrote it on paper. I said on chat, put your email address. Your phone number. So in the chat, he's put the phone number. I've called him up. So we've called him up and he clearly wasn't able to get to his phone straight away. And I got a voicemail that sounded like this. Hi, you've called, John, please leave me a voice message and I'll get back to you. I started to think, I think I've got the wrong person here because that young man wouldn't sound like that. And then 30 seconds later, he called me back and he goes, sorry, Daniel, I had to organise a few things. I'm ready. And he's got this big, manly, strongly voice. And I said, what happened with your voicemail? He'd recorded it when he was in year 11. When he was 11 years old, when he first got his phone. So that voicemail no longer represents him. All right? So voicemail that's current, that's not a stupid one like hello. And then I say hello. And then there's that awkward interaction because you think you've tricked me, but I just hang up. So I get the last laugh, right? Neat, straight to the point, make sure that it's professional, make sure it represents you in a positive light. Clean up your social media. Social media stats have fallen from 91% of employers admitting to checking down to 85, but that still is 17 out of every 20. So if 17 out of every 20 employers check social media or Google you, what do they find? And it's really important for you to make that in a positive light. Yes, we check your social media. So any drugs, alcohol, racism, sexism, anything like that, that'll paint a negative picture towards you. And then lastly, always controlling your first impressions. First impression on a phone, first impression via email, first impression in a job interview. So how you show up. Do you rock up in a suit? Do you wear jeans and a ripped t-shirt? Do you show up on time, or are you only 5 minutes late? All of these things, when it's competitive, make a difference. I want to just, I know that a lot of students I talk to end up falling in VCAL. When Daniel Andrews put in some steps for VCAL students, he made it clear that there was 10,000 VCAL students this year, finishing year 12. 10,000. So if you think you finishing VCAL, having a certificate too, is going to be your point of difference, well, your competition could potentially be 10,000 other young people. So you still need to be the best version of yourself. A certificate or a little bit of work experience isn't going to set you apart. What's going to set you apart is a well-rounded young adult. Someone who is showing me initiative, someone who is being courteous, someone who, when rings me up, says, hi, Daniel, this is Joe. Have you got 5 minutes to speak? Not, hi, this is Joe. I want to chat about the job. I get that all the time, all right? You need to prove to me that you're a young adult. And that's your little challenge. The resources and things you should be working on, obviously a plan of some sort, your resume and your cover letter. There's no reason why that should be done the night before because you've got something that you saw on Seek. It should be something you should have now ready, waiting for the great opportunities. If you've done any work experience, get a reference or a referee or a work experience report. Any certificates you have, you need to be proud of. If you've got white cards, if you've got working with children, take copies, take a portfolio. If you're doing VCAL and you're building a little cubby house, or you've done some electrical work and you take a photo, print them out, put them in a portfolio, set yourself apart. You might think, oh, they're going to think I'm a nerd. Who cares? They might also think you're the best person for the job. Any licenses and permits, if we've got any year 12s in the room, if you've got a driver's license, that's a point of difference. So I mentioned that you've got that. And then lastly, do the things that employers want, to make it easy for them. Things like tax file numbers, so that, again, you can be prepared for the next steps of your life. And then finally, some words of advice for you. All right, I'll just put all the 5 up. Whoop, I think I've gone too far. No, one more, there it is. If you have your heart set on something, as young adults, have a crack. All right? Don't let anybody tell you that you can't achieve it. And that's really, really important. If you have a go at something and it doesn't work out, you are not a failure. You tried it. Trust it, me. I made all of these mistakes, and that's why I'm passionate about these 5 things. Firstly, I wanted to be a chef. My work experience told me I don't want to be a chef. That's a learning experience. Great. I then wanted to be a printer or a publisher, something in design. I was told, there's not much jobs in that. You're not going to earn much money. So I went on a career path that it was completely different. And I sometimes kick myself. Would I have been happier doing those things? The answer is I would never know, but I kick myself that I didn't at least try. I want you to know the realities of the jobs you're going for, not just the jobs, fun parts or nice parts. Like I told you, if you want to be a plumber, you're the one in the hole digging the trench in the rain. You're in there with potentially sewage. If you want to be a childcare worker, there's screaming kids that you're responsible for, right? All of these are the realities of the job, not the sexy parts of the job. And as a result of that, it's your responsibility to know all of the realities of the job, not the good days, all the days. I want you to explore all your options, not just the easy option. Oh, my mate's doing this, I'll do it with them. Okay? Use your teachers, use your internet, use us as a resource. There is people willing to help. One of the big messages in the presentation I just completed is your teachers are not there as barriers, they're there as support. Right? At the end of year 12, not this year possibly, but you see teachers and students embrace and hug and say thank you for the journey. Because the reality is the quicker you understand they're on the same journey as you, wanting to help you, the quicker and the more you'll get out of that relationship. They're paid to do the job, but their heart is wanting to help you achieve your dreams. So let them, okay? And then lastly, I want you to live your dreams and not your friends' dreams. So in particular, if you're a young teenage male listening to this, don't get lazy. We hear so many young men in particular say, I want to be a carpenter. Why? I've got a couple of mates that are doing it. Yeah, but is that why you want to do it? Or is it you're wanting to live your mate's dreams? All right? My first qualification that I got, I did it because a mate of mine did it. That's the stupidest thing on hindsight that I could have done. But at the time, no one alerted me to the fact and the dangers of that. So I just did it because it was easy. And so now you've been told, have courage, stand on your own 2 feet and live your own dreams. I hope you've taken something away from today. Like I said, normally we try and address your own personal circumstances in the flesh right on the spot. But for today, we haven't got that opportunity unless you want to type some things in the chat room, and I'm happy to discuss. But again, we are here to support. The Len's here to support. I'm here to support. There is many, many people who are willing to support. You now, as young adults, need to grow the confidence and the courage to ask for that help. Okay? I did a school which it's not in your Len or your local area, which is lower socioeconomic kind of a school. And out of the 11 I presented to, which is I think similar to what we've got today, 7 of them had the courage to get on the phone or type an email to ask for assistance. So that makes me so super proud. All right? Because I don't know you from a bar of soap. I don't know you. All you will be is a piece of paper resume that's in front of me. I will not have preconceptions, or I will not have prior knowledge about you, and I will judge you on that piece of paper. Having said that, I will ask you for a couple of school references. So whilst you're at school, on time, in uniform, making your teacher's life as easy as possible and working your backside off. And if you do those things, they're the things that will allow you to excel, okay? Being the best version of yourself. So if there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If Brett or Tom, if you've got anything that you think is worth asking, or if any teachers are there that you want anything clarified, obviously this is our time. But otherwise, yeah, thank you so much for being a part of the presentation today.
Thanks, Daniel. I've got a question.
Absolutely.
What seems to be a very popular apprenticeship journey at the moment, Daniel?
Yep. So probably plumbing is probably it's always been, you know, top 4 or 5, but plumbing wages have skyrocketed. They've become the highest paid trade, and I suppose it's the old seagull to a chip theory. If you put lots of money in a certain spot, people will come, and plumbing seems to be that at the moment. So yeah, the most popular are still plumbing, electrical, and carpentry. Where we've seen growth areas are things like telecommunications, the whole allied health and health sector has been a bit of a growth area, and people understanding that they're using their qualifications as stepping stones to bigger things, and I think that's important to understand in the moment as well. So yeah, they're kind of growth areas. If you want jobs straight away, so if you're asking me what trades can young people pick up that within a week or 2 they probably will have an opportunity, it's the ones that have elements that suck, if that makes sense. So things like cooking, because you're gonna have to do weird hours. Hairdressing or barbering, because you have to be on your feet all the time. Bricklaying, because it is physical labor. So they're all things, every job, and Tom and Brett will agree, every job has its days. That's what I want to put that nicely. So again, having that resilience and moving beyond just the bad or just the good days, and understanding it's a blend of both. We've got a question there from Theodore. Can you do an apprenticeship for computering, or do you have to go to TAFE? Yes, there is traineeships in ICT. If you are young and wanting to do a school-based, there is some school-based specialist IT and business providers that you can probably talk to the LEN. I presume the LEN works with 1 or 2. I think Integrity is one that tends to reach out to a number of organisations. Otherwise, you can come to us. But yes, you can.
I can also talk about we've got one for Lightmare Studios, which is
Lightmare Studios, which is gaming and programming. So yes, there is. If you want to stay in school, there are school-based programs. But if you do leave school, there is some traineeships, not apprenticeships, but traineeships. There's a new one that's popped up is cybersecurity. The alternative is, yes, you will have to go to TAFE. So if you can't find an employer that's offering you that, then our steps would be, have you thought about going to TAFE? You can then use that TAFE qualification or that traineeship qualification for bigger things. So we're seeing, I'm working with a young man at the moment who has decided now he wants to go to uni, but he didn't do VCE, he did VCAL. So we're identifying a stepping stone qualification for him in order to now go to uni. I was asked by his parents, isn't that a waste of 2 years? And my answer to that is, your poor son is going to be working for 60 years of his life. 2 years to do study that he's passionate about is not a waste. Okay. If you do VCE and finish year 12, what would be the process to become an electrician? So Ahmed, that's a fantastic question. There is 2 things you do there. There's 2 options for you. Option 1 is you roll the dice, you make a nice resume, and you start hunting down apprenticeship opportunities. Or alternatively, to increase your chances, which we didn't talk about, is pre-apprenticeships. Okay? What a pre-apprenticeship does is it allows an employer to know you have the basic fundamental skills for that role that allow you to specialize in that trade. So, Ahmed, if that's you're talking about, you're about to finish year 12 and you've done VCE, make a nice, beautiful resume and start hitting up electricians. But in the meantime, I would be encouraging you to talk to some local TAFEs about enrolling in a pre-apprenticeship in electrotechnology, Cert 2 electrotechnology, so that you can get the certificate under your belt to add to your resume to make yourself more appealing to employers. And Ahmed, if you are a year 12 as well, I want you not neglecting your driver's license. We know driver's license for traditional trades is quite large, especially electronics.
Daniel, sorry, can I just say something? My
Absolutely.
students are all in Year 10 at the moment.
Yep.
I think they're really keen in understanding what's the next step for them if they opt not to stay in the school. What would be the next step for them? They're currently in Year 10. The majority of the boys in here are mine.
Yep. Okay, no problem. If you're in Year 10 and wanting to leave school, my thing, this is from experience and my advice only, is stay in school unless you've 100% got an employer locked away. Seeing you drop out with nothing secure is, I think, no longer allowed. And if it is allowed, it is highly, highly dangerous because you don't have potentially a pre-apprenticeship. You don't have a driver's license. You don't have work experience typically. So as a result of that, you're thinking of a business owner. Can you, would you be able to just name one student from your class as an example?
There's all of them actually. There's Ahmed, Romy, Nabil, Omar, Mohammed and Imran. They're all in my...
All right, the only one that I can see on the screen is Omar, so I'm going to use Omar. So think about Omar. Omar, if you can hear me, can you take yourself off mute? And what trade would you like to do?
I'd like to become an electrician.
All right, stop there. Put yourself back on mute. All right. So Omar finishes Year 12. Omar goes on, does an apprenticeship. At the age of 22, he's fully qualified, earning what an average electrician would earn, which is about minimum $35 an hour. Okay, that's at the age of 22. You look at the teachers in the room, they weren't able to have that opportunity. Okay, then 3 years later, at age 25, Omar decides to start his own business. The age of 25, Omar's business is going well. He's now 28 and decides he wants to put on his first ever apprentice. And he gets two resumes in front of him. A Year 12 school leaver with some experience and a pre-apprenticeship that they did in VCAL, as opposed to a Year 10 student with no license, no work experience, and no Cert 2 pre-apprenticeship. For Omar, as much as he would love to help everybody, he's got to make the right decision by his business, and he's choosing the Year 12 with some work experience. So if you're Year 10 thinking about dropping out, you need to be hammering down the doors of employers because you need to be having something, or my main advice is to stay in school. And I know that you may be hating school at the moment, but Year 11 and Year 12, you can ask any adult, are the best 2 years of your schooling journey because you choose the subjects, and B, you're working along your classmates who are now adults and you're enjoying the time. So my advice is to stay there. And if you're not going to do that, you need to be knocking down the doors of employers to make sure you have opportunity because, you know, I never want to see a young person leaving school with no opportunity. So I hope that answers the question.
Do you recommend... Oh,
sorry, Omar, you go and then I'll
Omar.
Go, Omar.
Would you rather, do you recommend doing VCE or VCAL instead of...
Great question, Omar. And that's really a personal thing. Well done, Omar, for having the courage to ask a question. What's the right answer there? The right answer there for me is that if you were 110% committed to wanting to be an electrician, then you can get a bit of a head start by VCAL because you'll have more opportunity to get work experience and you'll be able to, in that 2 years, being 11 and 12, potentially get your pre-apprenticeship. So all of a sudden, remember the things I just said, Omar, that I'm looking for? You'll be able to get 2 of those while staying in school. So there's 5 things we're always looking for: pre-apprenticeship, work experience, car and license. I forgot what I've already said. I'll start again, sorry. So car and license, work experience, pre-apprenticeship, Year 12 pass, and any part-time work. So if you finish your journey through VCAL, you should have the pre-apprenticeship, you should have a Year 12 pass, you should have collected work experience. It's up to you to get the driver's license. And if you're working at Macca's or Coles or Woolies, you've got a part-time job. They're the things that make you employable. So Omar, if you were looking down and saying, mate, I've always wanted to be an electrician and I know 1000% I want to be an electrician, I would talk to family and your school about exploring VCAL. If you are on the fence, you know, it's something I've been interested in, but I'm not 1000% sure, it's just an interest, I would go VCE, right? Keep all options open, okay? But if you are committed to knowing what you want to do, then VCAL. And again, I don't want you choosing VCAL because you think it's the easy way out. If you bludgeon VCAL, to me, that's a bludger. I don't care if it's bludgeon VCE or bludgeon VCAL, it's bludger, okay? That's the key word I'm looking for. If you excel in VCAL or excel in VCE, I am looking at a student who excelled, and that's what makes you employable, all right? So, Omar, that's the answer, and only you know the answer because of how committed you are to being an electrician rules that answer.
Yeah, I think I should do VCAL.
Yep. If you are 100% committed to becoming an electrician, then I think it's a smart option. Well done.
I've just got, Hen, did you have another question?
I actually wanted to direct, Omar, I kind of asked the question for me.
No worries.
I've
got one. We have got another group of Simmons students that had to leave, unfortunately, but
yep.
Theodore had one question about what about group apprenticeships? Are they common or uncommon?
They're common enough. Group training apprenticeships as opposed to straight apprenticeships means that you'll potentially have, so a group training apprenticeship is when you have like a host employer who hosts you out to many different employers. So for example, you might work with Daniel's Group Apprenticeships. Just let's make it a really bad name, Daniel's Group Apprenticeships. So I'll employ you and I'll pay you, but you will never work for me. I'll send you out to Little Johnny Carpentry, and then you'll go to Tom's Carpentry, and then you'll go to Hen's Carpentry, and every time you might move. So you might be in a job for 3 months, or you might be in a job for 3 days, and you'll constantly move around. So that's what group training is, as opposed to straight apprenticeships where you'll work with Daniel's Carpentry for the potentially 4 full years. Both of them have pros and cons. Let's quickly cap them. If you go with the group training, the positive is you'll get a variety of different work, and as a result, you'll become potentially a more well-rounded apprentice. However, you'll never feel comfortable because every couple of weeks or months, you may be moving. So if you're the shy or you're the, I want to just work with one employer, then you want to just approach employers. If you're that out, I had a young man who's very outgoing. He wants to get a lot of variety, and he's only looking at group training opportunities. And I said to him, are you going to be all right with maybe 2 times or 3 times a week, potentially meeting new employers? No problem with me. I can talk to anyone. That's what his words were. Fantastic. He's thought about it. Okay. So the difference between group training is where you will have multiple potentially employers under one employer. Your pay will come from one employer, but you'll be leased out almost to multiple. Okay. So if you're thinking about what is a group training method, it's a casual relief teacher. Okay. Who will go to multiple schools for 1 day here, or this week we've got a sick teacher. Can you work here? Whereas, your normal apprenticeship model is where you work for just one school potentially, in that whole period of time. So it's a good way of doing it if you're looking at it in a teaching setting. It's the casual relief as opposed to the full-time teacher.
Thanks for that. Have we got any more questions?
No?
I think we might wrap it up. I'd like to say thank you so much, Daniel Grech, for giving us your experience, knowledge, and expertise.